Hmm. Uh, we are finally working on some projects too now. So right now I'm like going through like a Pi 6 tutorial while also building the project that I want to. So basically whatever he will be teaching me, I'll try to implement it in my project. So I don't really know what this is going to be now. I think it's going to be like some sort of like a chatbot. I don't want to be like a normal random chatbot with like a chat GPT API connection. I wanted to specialize in something, so I'm maybe thinking of a decision maker kind of a thing. But okay, let's see how that works. So I'll just like start working with this. So this is like wow, wow, I'm just retarded, man. So I think this should just prop up a random ass thing, right? So this is like a window.
One that says Python here. And I want you to choose the one that says Python here. Okay, wait for it in Pi system. We're going to get the left here. So now we want the Python. So what works? We will import access options, and it's going to be a Q widget. And to run these unnecessary frustrations. So I do recommend using the code as is here. So you can copy from the GitHub repository and paste in here. Okay, once you have the code in, make sure you save. So you can Control S on this or File and Save. And after this, we will open a terminal window. We're going to come to View and say Terminal, and it's going to open a terminal window inside Visual Studio Code in our current folder here, which is a bit convenient. And we will type Python main.py. And if we wait, we're going to see a window pop up, and this is confirming that our installation of both Python and Pi 6 is working, and we are ready to start learning about Qt for Python. And this is really cool. This is really all I had to share in this lecture. And again, the goal was to set up a development environment we can use to do what we do in this course here. We have Python 3 installed, we have Pi 6 installed, and we installed the editor that we will be using throughout this course here. Don't worry about Qt Designer at this point because we're going to need it later in the course, and when we get to need it, we will install it, and we're going to see how cool all this is. We are going to stop here in this lecture, and I will see you in the next one. In this lecture, we are going to try and understand what is actually going on here. In the last lecture, we blindly typed in the code to make sure the environment is working, but now is the time to try and get an idea of what is going on here. Before we do that, we are going to go to where we saved our code, and we'll copy the code from the last lecture, and rename this 02 understanding the code. I think that's going to work better. And it's 02, not 01, so my bad here. And I'm going to drag and drop this on top of Visual Studio Code to open that project. Now, if I hit on main.py here, you see the exact same thing we saw in the last lecture. We have a syntax highlighting now. And the first thing I want you to do, that is going to save you a little bit of time, is to come to File and toggle autosave. Okay, you're going to click on autosave here. And now things are going to be autosaved as you type things, and you won't have to hit Control S or come here to say save. That's going to save you a bit of time. Now, let's try to understand the code, but before we do, let's make sure it actually runs. So we can come to View, Terminal, and hit the app arrow. And this is going to bring back the command we typed the last time we ran Visual Studio Code. This is really cool. If you want it, you could type this Python main.py and hit enter, and Python, let's type that correctly. And if you run, you're going to see our window pop up here. Now, the code here, the first line is reporting the components that we need. For this code, for this project, we need Q application and Q widget, and these are part of the Qt widgets module that comes as part of the Pi side installation that we did. So this is really importing the components we need. And here you could either import sys or not import it, but I just wanted you to see that it is possible if you want to process command line arguments. Okay, so sys is a module that is responsible for processing command line arguments, and once you have them, they are going to be picked up by the Q application instance you have here, and you will be able to process them in your Qt application. So that's what the sys thing here does. Okay, once we have our sys thing here, we can create our application, and an application is really like a wrapper that is going to be englobing everything you do in your Qt application. So it is going to be the thing responsible for running your application and waiting for things to happen as you interact with your application. For example, if you click on the button, all those things are going to be happening under a wrapper that is this app object here. This is as simply as I can explain it. After we have our application, we will create our widget, and we name it window in our application here. And by default, widgets or windows in Qt are hidden, so we need to show it. And after we show it, we will call the exec method on our application to start the event loop. And the event loop really is a while loop, something that keeps looping around waiting for things to happen. So for example, if we run our application, let's bring back our terminal, and we run it again. So for example, if we run it and there happens to be a button in our application here, if you click on the button, the event loop is going to be the thing that catches that click you do on the button, and it is going to respond. I realize I am jumping around here, trying to go as deep as I can, but that's the gist of what is happening here. The exec call here is going to start the event loop. So let's say that here. Okay, and this is really all. So for example, if we run it and there happens to be a button in our application here, if you click on the button, the event loop is going to be the thing that catches that click you do on the button, and it is going to respond. I realize I am jumping around here, trying to go as deep as I can, but that's the gist of what is happening here. The exec call here is going to start the event loop. So let's say that here. Okay, and this is really all that is happening here. Another thing I want to say is that if you have been working with Python, you may have seen things like this, calling the exec method with an underscore after the C. And let's try to run the code with this. So let's bring back our terminal and try to run again. And you're going to see that it is going to work, but you see a comment saying that this thing will be removed in future versions of Python, and they are recommending using exec instead. And this is coming because of older versions of Python that had problems with the exec command here. In Python 3, I believe this is going to work well. So the convention we will be using here is not to use the underscore. We will be typing exec like this, and you will see the same things on the print function you have in Python. So if you want to print something, you can say print, and it is going to print that, but you can also use an underscore. Again, this is something that comes from older versions of Python, but in this course, we won't be using these underscores here. Another thing I want to point out is that you can use the documentation to learn about everything you want about PySide 6. So for example, if you want to learn about this widget thing we are using here, you can go to your favorite search engine and say PySide 6 and say Q widget. And this is going to pull the documentation for Qt for Python. If you open this, you will have all the information about that thing. So let's see what they say here. You can click on more, and you can increase the size of this because I like larger text. And it is the atom of the user interface. It is a base widget on top of which you can build a lot of other things. I do recommend reading up on this if this is your first time with Qt. So you can create a widget. A widget can have a bunch of components. You can create other widgets on top of this. But we will have a chance to learn about all these things as we progress in the course. But it won't hurt to take a moment and read about this and how you can use this in your Python applications. So this is all I had to share in this lecture, trying to shed some more light on what is going on behind the scenes. We are going to stop here in this lecture. In the next one, we will try and organize our code in separate files so that things are easier to work with. I will see you in the next lecture. In this lecture, we are going to organize the code in classes to make things a bit easier to work with. In the last lecture, we did something like this. Even if we didn't use QMain window, but the code looks strikingly similar. And here we will be using everything in the global scope, so we will be doing things in a single file. You see, we are employing sys here to be able to process command line arguments. We are creating a window, and this is a different kind of window that can have menus, toolbars, and things like this. And we will have a chance to learn about this later. You're going to see how it looks in a minute. Another special thing about this kind of widget or window is that we can give it a central widget, and that's what we want to do here to be able to use buttons. So we have the window here. We are going to give it a title using the setWindowTitle method, and after that, we will set up a button which is meant to live inside this window here. A button is something you can click on, you can give it the text, and once you have your window set up, again, we have the window. Let's try to draw this here. We have a big window. Inside the big window, we will have a button, and this button is going to have text here, press me, and this button is going to be within this window because of the setting we are doing here. That's how these things work. After we have the window, we will show it, and we will start our event loop, and the application is going to work. Now, some would argue that putting all the logic for these buttons and things in the same file is really bad, and we need to organize this. The first level of organization we're going to do is to extract the logic for the window in its own class, and we do that using the code you see here. So we will create a class in Python. The class is going to be named button holder, as you see right here, and it's going to be inheriting from QMain window. We will give it a constructor, and if you know Python object-oriented programming, this is not new to you. So we will have a constructor, and in the constructor, we will be doing the things we were doing in our main Python file. You see, we are setting up the window title, we are setting up the button, and we are telling the button to be the central widget for this button holder class. Once we have this class set up, we will create an object of it in our main Python file. Again, we have the application object, we created the window. Notice what kind of window it is button holder, and this is going to create an instance of the class that we just set up on top here. Once we have the window, we're going to show it and kick off the event loop, and this is going to extract the logic of setting up the window and doing all kinds of crazy things in this class here. Some would argue that this is still not maintainable. It is bad. We see the logic for the buttons and the windows in our main Python file. Well, we can do even better and create a version 3 of our application in which we are going to extract the button in a separate file. So we can do something like this. We can create a file and name it buttonholder.py, and inside that file, we will put in the code to create our buttons and windows and all kinds of crazy things. Now, in the main file, what we are going to do is to import the things we need to use. We will import sys, import application, import button holder, and after that, we will be able to use button holder, even if the details of this button holder class are not in this file here. And our main.py file is going to be a bit easier to look at, and this is the main goal of this lecture here, making it easier to organize our code in classes to make it easier to work with. Now that we know this, we're going to head over to Visual Studio Code and play with this a little more. Okay, here we are in Visual Studio Code, and here is the code we will be using here, organizing code in classes. If you go in, you're going to see that it is a folder with the main Python file. So we're going to be starting from there. Let's drag it and drop it on top of Visual Studio Code to open it. And if you look, it is the same thing we had in the last lecture. Let's clean all this up, and we will put in the code for this lecture here. We will go on top and put in version 1 of our code, and to save on time, I am just going to paste in the code here and take a moment to explain it, because typing it would really waste our time. I will type when I see that it is going to add value, but for now we just want the code here. In our editor. So we are importing the things we need. We need Q application, Q main window, and Q push button. And And now that you see these new classes that you don't know about, it is a good time to go to the search engine and try to learn as much as you can about them. So we can go to our search engine here and say Q main window, okay, Q main window. And if we go and click here, and again, I do recommend reading as much as you can about this. This is a main window that provides a framework for building an application's user interface. And one thing that is special about this class is that it allows you to set up things like menu bars, toolbars, dock widgets, status bars, and things like this. And it is a really cool thing to have in your application if you need these kinds of things. So we are going to be using a basic version of this, but I do recommend reading as much as you can about this. So let's come back to our editor. So we have a main window object we are creating that is going to allow us to set up menu bars, status bars, and all kinds of crazy things. We are going to give it a window title, and down below we are creating a button, Q push button. And again, this is a good time to come to your search engine and look for a Q push button. So let's do that. Okay, come here. You should really drill this habit in your workflow because it's going to allow you to learn more things than I could even tell you in a course like this. So the push button or command button is perhaps the most commonly used widget in any graphical user interface. So you can click on it and things are going to happen. This is really how it works. This is how you create it, and you can connect slots to it, and you can do all kinds of crazy things with this button component here. For now, we are just interested in making it show up in our user interface because it is easier to work with. After we have the button, we will tell our main window to use the button as its central widget. Once we have the window, we will show it, and we will kick off the event loop by calling the exec method here. This is all we are doing. Now that we have this, remember this is going to autosave because of the setting we did here. You see autosave is toggled on. We can show our terminal, okay, and we can hit up to bring back our command, and let's make sure it is highlighted so everybody can see it. This is the command we have right here, python main.py. If we hit enter with this, this is going to show a window, and if we resize it a little bit, I want you to notice some of the things we did. We have our window title on top here, okay, you can see it right here, and we set it up using this line here, and we have a button in the middle of the window right here. This is our button, and it is saying press me. You can see the text here, and it is the text we set up here. And I really want you to make sure you understand the relationship between the code you type and the things you see when you get to run your application, because this is going to give you a firm understanding of how PySide is working to give you the user interface you are seeing here. Now, we have the application here, but some of you might argue that it is really not well organized, to say the least, to have the window and button logic in our main Python file. And we will try to improve on this. What we are going to do is to comment out our version 1 here, and I'm going to put in a pair of block comments in Python. This is how you do it in Python. You have 3 double quotes and 3 double quotes, and in the middle you're going to put in your code, and that's going to be commented out. And I can copy what I want to comment out. Okay, so let's put my code in here and leave the comment on top. This is a one-line comment in Python. This is how you do it. And we will do version 2. And in version 2, we will be creating a separate class, but the class is going to still be living inside our main Python file here to do things in steps. We can go down and do our imports. These are the same things we have been doing for a long time. We will go down and set up our class button holder, and it is going to be inherited Q main window. We will set up our constructor, and it is going. And in version 2, we will be creating a separate class, but the class is going to still be living inside our main Python file here to do things in steps. We can go down and do our imports. These are the same things we have been doing for a long time. We will go down and set up our class button holder, and it is going to be inherited Q main window. We will set up our constructor. And it is going to be calling the parent constructor. And it is going to be calling the super constructor, or its parent constructor. Now, this class is going to be inheriting from QMain window, so it is also going to be some kind of QMain window. In other words, it is going to have access to methods we have in QMain window. What that means is that we can say something like self set window title, and we will be stealing this method from QMain window and being able to use that in our button holder class. This is classic inheritance in object-oriented programming, so I don't need to say much about this. So let's put in our text. After that, we will set up our button because we have Q push button imported here. So let's say button equals Q push button, press me. And the next thing we need to do is to set up the button as our central widget. Again, we have access to the set central widget method because this is a main window. It is inheriting from QMain window. Again, that's what you should understand here. Here. So we're going to say self button holder class. This is classic inheritance in object-oriented programming, so I don't need to say much about this. So let's put in our text. After that, we will set up our button because we have Q push button import. Here. So let's say button equals Q push button, press me. And the next thing we need to do is to set up the button as our central widget. Again, we have access to the set central widget method because this is a main window. It is inheriting from QMain window. Again, that's what you should understand here. So we're going to say self set central widget, and we will pass our button as the central widget. Okay, now that we have this, we can go down and do the usual thing. Thing we did on top. For example, we can even copy from what we did before. Okay, so we can create our application object. We're going to go all the way to the bottom. We're going to create our application. We want to create a main window. Now we are going to be creating a button holder. So what we can do is go on top and say button holder. So we will have a button holder here, and we will take out the line to set the central widget because we are doing that in our button holder. Now that we have this, I think we are ready to start running this thing. Again, we have our class, which is going to be wrapping around the logic to show the window and putting things inside the window. And we are doing all this in the constructor of our button holder class. This is really cool. Let's bring up our terminal window and make sure we can run this. And if we run this, what is the problem here? I think it is the self thing we are passing here. So let's try to run again.
Not pass self in this. Well, yeah, we don't really pass an object, right? While executing the super function, I need to check my super function. No, we do pass all this in the super function, so why do we not do it here? Well, because the parent class does not take any input, right? Probably. The parent institution does not take any input.
And now you see that we see the same thing we saw before, but now we have
Yep.
extracted the logic for button holder and setting up the window and putting things inside the window in its own class, and this is really cool. Now, again, we can do better than this by moving this button holder class in its own separate class, or its own separate file, I should say. Let's do that. We are going to comment out this. Let's put in our block comment section, and we are going to move everything we don't want in here from this section into our comment. And what we will do is to create.
Wow.
create a new file. Let's copy the code for the button holder class here, and I'm going to copy that. Let's go to the left and create a new file, call it button holder.py. And inside this file, we are going to paste in our class. Again, nothing special here. We don't need queue application here because queue application is used in our main Python file, but we need queue main window and queue push button. We don't need sys imported here. Okay. Now what we need to do is to just copy the part that instantiates the button holder. Then, okay, we can do that. And for this to work, we need to import queue application. So let's do that. We can copy the line that does this here and sys. I think we need sys here. I think we also need sys imported. Let's do that. And now we need to also import the button holder class. We are going to say from button holder, import button holder. And this is going to give us access to these things. And you see that all the dirty work to set up the main window and put things inside the window is moved in our button holder file. And this is really cool. This is what I wanted you to see. And we will be doing things this way going forward in the course to make our organization a bit easier. Let's show our terminal window and run to make sure everything still works. I think we still have something running here. Let's run. Let's say Python main. And if we do that, this is going to run and we see our thing here. And our code is organized in classes, and this achieves what we set out to do in this lecture here. In this lecture, we are going to learn about signals and slots in Qt. And signals and slots are a mechanism that Qt provides to connect things. In other words, when something happens, we want to respond in some other part of our code. Suppose on the left here we have a push button, and we want to do something when that button is clicked. The way we do that, we set up a piece of code that is going to respond to the right here. And when the button is clicked, Qt is going to emit a signal. This signal is going to be picked up by whoever might be interested in this button being clicked, and they are going to respond. The mechanism Qt provides allows us to connect signals to slots. And when you have made this connection, when somebody clicks on the button, the method that is responsible for responding is going to respond and do whatever it is you do in the body of that method. Suppose we are printing a message. Whenever you click on the button, we are going to print a message. Whenever you click on the button, we are going to print a message. And Qt provides a simple syntax to allow us to do that. Let's look at that. Here I have a piece of code, and what I am setting up here is a simple button. You can see that right here. And we want to respond when this button is clicked. We say that we want to respond in this piece of syntax you see here. here. So we say button, the name of the variable, we say dot, and then we say the signal that we want to respond to. In this case, the signal's name happens to be clicked. And once we do this, we are going to call the connect method on this. And when we say connect, we are going to specify the method that is going to respond to this button being clicked within this parenthesis here. In this case, it happens to be button clicked. If you look on top here, we have this method. We are defining it, and in the body of this method, we are just saying the message. You clicked on the button. So this is what we are doing here. We are connecting a slot or a method that is going to respond when this button is clicked. And this is what does this connection here. So some of you must be asking, Daniel, how did you know that we have this clicked signal on our button? And this is another instance of where you need to use the documentation. So we are interested in the Q push button component. We want to see which kind of signals this component emits. Let's go to our search engine pretty fast. So let's close all of this here, and we are going to say Q push button or Qt for Python. And if you do that, we will have the documentation for Q push button. If you click on more, it is going to tell you everything about this component. But what we really want is to see the signals that this component emits. And if you go down in here, we see synopsis functions, virtual functions, slots. So this is a slot you can activate if you want to do something like this. But we don't see any signal from this component. And this is because all these signals are coming from a parent class of this push button component. And that happens to be what you see here, this little thing called the Q abstract button. The documentation for Qt for Python is not really good. For example, we can't scroll around to see the things that are cropped off, but we are lucky in this instance, we can see Q abstract button. If you click on this is going to open the documentation for Q abstract button. If you click on more, it's going to tell you what this does. It is going to implement an abstract button, and all kinds of buttons we have in Qt are going to be inheriting from this button here. But again, what we are interested in are the signals that might be emulated by this component. Again, we see functions. If we scroll down, we're going to see virtual functions. If we go down, we're going to see slots we can activate. If we go down, we're going to see signals, and this is what we are interested in. So the Q push button component can emit a signal to let us know that it is clicked. It can emit to let us know it is pressed, is released, is tabled, and we can do all
our sorted squares array and returning that.
Pip install pyqt. Call the constructor for our class of main window. For us right now, for the time being, I'll pick something roughly near the middle of my screen. CSS like properties. By accessing our label object, we will align vertical. For the window, image is right justified within our window. Let's take label 1. For label 2, let's say row 0, column 1. When we click this button, we will perform a slot, an action. That's the default behavior, but we could set that to be checked with the following method when the window loads. Let's take our checkbox, self.checkbox, call with the set style 1. Let's get the text from the text box, then do some widgets. There's already to be 15 pixels, or my favorite, which is HSL. HSL means hue, saturation, and lightness.
This video was brought to you by Indently.io, learning Python made simple. How's it going, everyone? In today's video, we're going to be learning about classes in Python. How's it going, everyone? Last month, I told you all that I had a new free Python course that taught you how to build 10 cool projects in Python. And this is perfect if you're getting started in Python because it's going to teach you how to create an income calculator, an expense splitter, a tkinter notepad, and a chatbot, and many more projects. I just skipped all those names because it's a lot to say. But as you can see, there's a lot of projects here. that it will teach you how to make. And I explain all of these projects in detail using some of the best practices in Python. So if this sounds like something that interests you, you can find the link in the description box down below. It's going to contain a coupon, which is going to allow you to claim this entire course for free on Udemy. Now, unfortunately, Udemy only allows me to create a limited amount of coupons every month. So there might be a chance that I will run out of coupons before you can claim the course. In case that happens, don't worry about it. Wait until next month when I'm allowed to create more coupons. But for now, there should be plenty of spots available for everyone for the next 48 hours. So if this course interests you, head down to the description box.
Not really, bro. I'll just let it know.
All kinds of trace effects. We can even grab these arguments or these parameters and use them to do things in our Qt for Python applications. So let's go back to our slides now that you know where I got the information that we have this clicked signal. So we have connected to it. And then after we do this connection and start the application, when we click on the button, we're going to see the message from our method here. And this is going to be really cool. So we are just responding when we click on the button, and we know the syntax we use to do that. And this is really cool. We can go even further and grab the parameter that is emitted by the signal. For example, if you go back to our documentation in the browser, you're going to see that the click signal can emit a parameter to let us know whether the button is checked or not. We're going to take advantage of this and show you how to handle parameters in signals. We can go back to the slides. And what we are doing here, after we set up the button, we're going to make it checkable. And this is going to make it toggle its state whenever we click on it. So if we click on it first, it's going to be checked. If we click on it again, it's going to be unchecked. And it is really going to be simulating the behaviors we have with checkboxes. If you click on a checkbox, it's going to be checked. You click on it again, it's going to be unchecked. And it is basically going to be toggling between these two states. That's what we are simulating here with our Q push button component. But we are doing this because we know when it emits the click signal, it can also give us information whether it is checked or not. And we are going to be printing that state in this print statement here. So we are just going to say print, and we are going to print the data parameter that we get in this function here. And we are just doing the usual connection we did before. Notice we are saying button click connect, and we are activating the button click method whenever this button is clicked. And that method happens to be on top here. So this is something we can do. We can respond when something happens and grab the data that was sent to us by the signal and use that in our method. And this is really cool. Let's look at another example before we head over to Visual Studio Code and play with us here. We are going to use a slider. So we will set up a slider component. And again, this is something we have in Qt. This is going to be something like this, where you have a slider that you can slide around to increase or decrease values. We are going to give it a minimum, a maximum, and a value. And whenever we move the slider is going to emit signals that its value is changing. And because I checked the documentation, I know that the slider has a value changed signal. Let's go to the documentation and really show you this. You should be able to find things out on your own in the documentation. Let's say Q slider. And if we open this up in another tab, we are going to see all about this component. You can read about this here, but we are interested in signals that it might emit, and we don't see. Okay, if we go down here, we're going to see that this slider is going to inherit a comprehensive set of signals, and among these signals, we have a value changed. Okay, if we click on this, we are going to see that this signal is going to pass a value to us, and we can grab this value and do things with it in our Qt for Python applications. So this is what we are doing in the slides here. We are grabbing that value, okay, and printing that out in our print statement here. And all this is happening because of the connection we did here. So whenever the value changes, we want to call this method to respond to the slider moving, and we will grab the current value from the slider and do things with it. Now that you know all this, and again, I realize it is a lot of information, but we're going to go through this step by step in Visual Studio Code, and I hope you are going to understand. So let's go there and play with this. Okay, here we are in Visual Studio Code. We have an empty folder in which we will be doing our thing. Let's grab and drag on top of Visual Studio Code to open this, and we will create our main Python file, main.py, and this is going to give us our starting point. The first thing we are going to do is to put in version 1 of our application here. And again, I am not going to type all this. We are just importing the components we need. We are setting up a method that is going to respond when the button is clicked. We are setting up our application object, the button, and we are doing the most important thing here.
Man, that's not goody. What's PyCache? Fuck you, me. Man, I just need to copy this shit from there. I think I'll just type it out. Fuck it.
let's take out the line and do the connection ourselves. So we are saying button whenever the button is clicked, and you see that we don't have autocomplete here, so we have to autocomplete the signal and then connect. That's what we do, and we want to specify the thing that is going to respond when this button is clicked. So that's going to be button clicked here. Now we have the connection made, and we are just going to show the button here. Notice that all we have in our application here is a simple button. So this is what we are going to see when we run this application here. Let's bring up our terminal window, and we will simply run this just like we did other applications. And when we do that, we see a little window pop up that is saying press me. So this is our button inside this window here. And if we click on it, you see it's going to print the message. And it is doing that because of the connection we did here. Let's close this and comment out this connection to show you that if we don't make the connection, we won't see this message when we click on the button, because there is no connection between this button whatsoever to this slot here, or this method, if I can say it like that. Let's run it again to see this going on. We have the button, and if I click on it 1,000 times, I'm not going to see a single message here unless I come back in my code and activate the connection and run the application again. Then we will see the button, and if we click on it, we're going to see things.
Man, you need to save this shit too. It's like so much worse than fucking. Wow. Minuscule. Type shit.
Things happening as a response to the connection that we did here. This is really the syntax. Again, how do I know we had this click signal? I use the documentation. Let's go down and show you that you can also handle parameters or arguments coming in your signals. Let's comment this out. So we have this done here, and we will put in version 2 of our code. Let's go down and uncomment this. Let's take out my block comment here. And again, notice that we have a parameter in our slot here, and we don't have any mention of that parameter because the click signal is going to send it anyway. These are the
Wow. I do.
parameters or arguments coming in your signals. Let's comment this out. So we have this done here, and we will put in version 2 of our code. Let's go down and uncomment this. Let's take out my block comment here. And again, notice that we have a parameter in our slot here, and we don't have any mention of that parameter because the click signal is going to send it anyway. It is our decision to decide whether we handle it or not. That's what we are doing here. So we have the parameter, and we're going to be printing the checked state. And to be able to toggle between the checked.
I mean, we are passing data. I didn't write that last time. Was there a data last time?
Like we did other applications, click on a slot here, or this method. And as a response, to show you that we put in version parameter in our slot here. Let's go down and uncomment this. Let's take out my block comment here. And again,
wait, okay. So you just updated that, alright. You shouldn't def button clicked. Now we push some data here. Where the button didn't you check? The button has been clicked. I'll just plus the data with that. Right. Actually, we can do something like that. That's nice.
notice that we have a parameter in our slot here, and we don't have any mention of that parameter because the click signal is going to send it anyway. It is our decision to decide whether we handle it or not. That's what we are doing here. So we have the parameter, and we're going to be printing the checked state. And to be able to toggle between the checked and not checked state, you have to enable that on your button component, and that's what we are doing here.
Okay, set checkable to application you push button. And the cd do button set check able to button checkable and check target mode for 3 clicks toggle between check and check.
Setting checkable to true. Once you have this, you can run the application, and you are going to see that as you click on the button, it is going to be constantly toggling between the checked and unchecked state. Let's run this. We can go to View and the Terminal and run.
Wow, my eye just forgot to do that. Wow, can only go on a string. Okay, so this is just like string concatenation. What I'm doing, so I can just do this, right? So it will just print out whatever the data is there. Yeah, I should have just done that on the start, but I know what I mean now. So fuck kind of shit, bro. True, nice. Wait a minute. So let's say I did not have oh, it does like a
run this again, but before we do, I think we need to kill the application that was running earlier. So let's clear and bring up our application. If we click press me, it is going to check, it is going to say checked true. We click again, checked false. We click again, checked true. This is happening because a behavior that is built into this button component is that if you click on it while you have this property set to true, it is going to be constantly toggling between checked and unchecked. That's what we can do here. And again, the real intent in this example is to show you that you can handle parameters that come in your slots, and the syntax you use to connect doesn't really change. You decide whether you handle them or not by putting the parameter here. If you put the parameter in here, you can handle it in your application depending on the data inside this data parameter. If you decide not to handle it, you can just take this out, and you're going to follow back to what we had in our previous example. So let's run again so we can show our terminal and kill the application that was running, and let's try it again. Now if you click, you're going to see that we are just going to see the message, but we don't see the state because we're not handling our parameter here. If we put it back in and say data, okay, and run again, I think we can run again. Now we are going to see the checked state because we are handling that in our slot here. I hope this makes sense. And I did the best I could to put in a bunch of understandable comments so that you can really understand what is going on here.
not actually does though. I mean, probably does that.
Let's comment this out and give you another example using a slider because that's a bit more interesting. So let's put our code in the
Oh, jeez, I don't know.
comment block here, and we can go down below and put in our code. And again, we are just going to be importing the components we need.
Oh, I need to type it out again. It's gonna come. I said since Qt core import Qt. Wow.
Okay, notice that we are importing the Qt namespace, if I can say it like that. We have a slot which is going to be handling some data, but the slot is going to be responding to a slider being moved. And again, we talked about this in the slide. We have a slider. We want it to be horizontal. If you want, you can make it vertical, but it's not going to be beautiful. We have the minimum set. Again, I know about these methods because I am familiar with Qt for a lot of years, but if you are just getting started, your best bet is to use the documentation to read about all these things. For example, again, if you go back to slider, I think we have that somewhere here. You can see the methods that it has. Okay, so we have a maximum method to get the maximum. We have a method to set the maximum. You can read about all these methods to see things you can do with your UI components in your Qt for Python applications. And again, after we have the slider, we are connecting to the value change signal, and we want our method to be activated whenever the value changes. And whenever the value changes, we are going to grab the current value.
Bro, is this guy not gonna teach us anything? Like, bro, like we can just like see everything from the documentation, no? Like, what are you like trying to make a video on? You do, bro. You have a 5-hour fucking video on all this, and you're not even telling us about the basic thing. You're just asking us to go and read the documentation, but it's just, so why are we making a video? We could just like read the documentation from the start to the end, no? Like, I mean, we are reading it anyways. Why do we add a video on it? That's crazy, no? Like, I shit. Fuck, bro. I think I'm like watching a dog shit tutorial. This guy is just like randomly popping out stuff from random ass places. Like the main window thing that he just told us before. Like that just there's a whole section about it afterwards. Like why are we even having these functions? Just don't make a video, then we can just watch everything from YouTube. You know? Like from everything from the fucking documentation.
Which is sent to us as part of this signal, and we will be printing that right here. If this is not making too much sense, maybe we can run the application. So let's go to terminal and run it. And this is going to give us a slider here, okay?
Wow. Q slider, qt.horizontal. Wow, just trying not to find what I. Oh, then that qt code input qt should be working. My site 6. Put qt, q push button is oh q slider. Okay, I'm just Alright, so okay, no, its value is set at 25. It's not about, okay, it's the default value. Wow, that's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy, baby. Wow, that is kind of crazy, bro. Value for the is this based on my fucking coding rate or whatever? Wow, crazy.
And if we move it, you're going to see things happening here. Again, you see that it was starting at 25. If we move it up, it's going to go to 27, 28, 29. It can go all the way to the maximum, which is 100, or we can bring it all the way to the bottom, which is 1. Okay, and we can move things around. You can use this component in your application, and it is going to work really well. But again, the meat of this lecture here is to let you know how to make connections between signals and slots, and I hope you know how to do this right now. This is really all I have to share in this lecture. I hope you found it useful. We are going to stop here in this one, and I will see you in the next lecture. I would like to welcome you in.
Alright, I see that.
this new chapter where we are going to be exploring Qt widgets. And the widgets are really
But this video is not even correctly like mapped where what section starts where. Like Qt starts like 10 minutes after in the fucking video. The fuck?
the basic components you use to build your user interfaces. And in Qt, these are going to be coming from the Qt widgets module.
Wow, thank the Lord we're finally talking about this stuff. Like we just introduce everything at once for some reason. I mean, yeah, I think I'll just like put this entire tutorial thing outside. I think I'll put it in random, I guess. Not random, I guess. I'll put it in like Python projects, why not?
We will have a chance to look at Q push button, Q line edit, and all these widgets you see here, and they will allow you to build cool user interfaces. Without waiting anymore, let's head over to the next lecture and get started. In this lecture, we are exploring the Q widget component we have in the Qt framework. And this is a fundamental component in building user interfaces, in that it is going to give you a base window on top of which you can do all other things. So for example, if we set up a Q widget component and show it, we will have a bare window. And on top of this window, we can really build any kind of structure to have all kinds of crazy user interfaces we might wait for in our Qt applications. And to use this, it's really simple. Now you have the fundamentals of how you do things in Qt for Python. Here, I am going to show you a simple example. And this is a class that is going to be living in its own file. The class name is rock widget. It is going to be inherited from Q widget. And Q widget is really the base class that we can use in our Qt applications. It is going to have a constructor, and in the constructor, we're going to be doing our basic work here. Another thing I'm going to show you in this lecture is how we can use layouts to lay things out nicely. This is really not the place to introduce layouts, but we really need them to have the flexibility to lay things out flexibly inside our widget. So that's why I am doing that here. You also see that we are having a bunch of components. We have a bunch of buttons.
Is the at all going to talk about layouts? Where is this video? Q push button, Q label, line edit, text edit, Q labels, images, policies, stretches, grid layout. Okay, so the layout have later on help box, radio button, list widget, tab widget. Okay, that's kind of good, I would say. Why do we not use Qt design from the start? It's as what I've heard.
We are doing connections to slots, and we want to respond when these buttons are clicked. And in our code, we will also set up these methods that are going to respond. Once we have the widget, we are going to display it in our main Python file. And here you see that we are doing the usual. We are importing the file that contains our rock widget class. And we are setting up a widget, which is an instance of our rock widget component. We are showing it and kicking off the event loop to have our application show up. Now that you know these things, we are going to head over to Visual Studio Code and play with us step by step. Okay, here we are in our Visual Studio Code editor. I have an empty folder, which is going to be containing the source code for our example here. Let's drag it and drop it on top of Visual Studio Code to open it, and I can create my main Python file. And in here, we can do the usual. We can import the things we need. We can also...
So what's the thing is it all about? So this one is for Q widget.
import sys.
Wow.
Set up our application object, and we are going to say window equals Q.
I am both says I don't see like we can do it without the system line argument, right? Why are you doing it with it?
We are going to show the window, and we are going to say app exec. Okay, to start our application here. Notice that we say Windows here, and we don't have Q widget imported, and we can import that here. Q widget. It is part of the widgets module in PySide 6. And if we do this and run the application, we should see a widget pop up. Let's show our terminal so that we can run the application easily, and we can go up until we find the command to run this. And you see, this is going to pop up our widget. Nothing special here. What we are going to do is to move the logic to set up the widget.
I did not do that shit for me. Really no fun.
inside a separate class and have that widget as a base on top of which we can build other things. So let's do that. We are going to create another file. We are going to call it rock widget. And in that file, we are going to import QWidget from PySide Qt-widgets. So let's do QWidget. And we'll set up our class. The class is going to be named rock widget. It is going to be inheriting from QWidget. And it is going to have a constructor. So let's make sure we put that in. And for example, we can give it a window title. Let's say self set window title. And we are going to call this rock widget. And now that we have this, notice that we did just the minimum we needed to have this be a valid Python class here. So we can come back to main.py and import. We're going to say from rock widget import rock widget. And we want to create a QWidget component. This time we will create a rock widget. We can do something like this. Now that we have this, we can run. Let's see if this actually works. And if we run, we should see the same thing we saw before. But now this is not an instance of
What? It's not working. Should be the yes sir. Okay.
So Q is going to say from minimum we can give it is to import QWidget for things. So let's do that. We are going to create another file. We are going to call it rock widget. And
why are we calling it rock widget? Are we retarded? There's just gonna be like so many files here. Right now. I don't care this. Rock widget.py.
in that file, we are going to import QWidget from PySide Qt-widgets. So let's do QWidget. And we'll set up our class. The class is going to be named rock widget. It is going to be inheriting from QWidget. And it is going to have a
Okay, so why did not work? I might just be retarded because that's why I don't know.
constructor. So let's make sure we put that in. And for example, we can give it a window.
But why this guy just like always do some like why this guy just like always just do some like shortcut to like not write the code? So type some answers or something. What is Python nothing that bro? I'm not doing all that.
Title. Let's say self set window title. And we are going to call this rock widget. And now that we have this, notice
it's kind of boring now. Oh, I will just click that. It's kind of boring now. been an hour of me just like doing all this bullshit. Is crazy, brother.
But what I want to do is get all the prime numbers in this list. So first what I want to do is create a function called isPrime that takes in a single number and returns false if the number is not prime and returns true if it is. And now all I have to do is use Python's built-in filter function. I'll add isPrime and our list of numbers as inputs. Essentially what this does is applies the isPrimes function to every item in the nums list. If a boolean true is returned, it stores it in our primes variable. Otherwise, it removes the number. And all we have to do now is print our primes variable. However, you will see it prints out a filter object. This is Python's way of conserving memory. And so all I have to do is convert this to a list by putting this inside of a list function. And now we can run this, and there we go. We have every prime number.
You could just like run a loop where you yeah, I think I'll just finish this like widget section and then move on to leetcode.
Step we did just the minimum we needed to have this be a valid Python class here. So we can come back to main.py and import. We're going to say from rock widget import rock widget, and we want to create a queue widget.
Why did they call it rock widget instead of rock widget? From rock widget. Why not? Sure.
Component. This time we will create a rock widget. We can do something like
Yeah, why not?
this. Now that we have this, we can run. Let's see if this actually works. And if
answer.
We run, we should see the same thing we saw before, but now this is not an instance of QWidget, it is an instance of rock_widget, which itself inherits from the QWidget class. Now that we have this, we can start doing all kinds of crazy things on top of this QWidget component. What can we do? For example, we can set up a bunch of buttons. Let's do that. We will also import QPushButton. Okay, we already know QPushButton. Let's say button1 equals QPushButton and say button1. You can do this. If I can type, what are we going to see when we run this application? Let's try to run it. We are instantiating an object of rock_widget in main.py, remember? And we want to see where this button is going to show up in our user interface. That's the question you might have. Let's try to run. And if we do this, you see that we don't see our button, but we set it up in our code. The reason this is happening.
Okay, yeah, because we are not like making it or like adding it, right? Like, or making it like visible. It's defaultly like not added yet. But we just created an instance, not applied it basically.
Happening is that this widget doesn't know where to put the button. And to put things inside our widgets or our window, we need to use layout. And the layout is a way, let's try to draw this so that it is really easy to understand. Now we have our widget component and we put our button in our code here to attempt to put some kind of button in our user interface. But this widget component doesn't know how to lay them out. There is a way in Qt you can tell a widget to lay things out either vertically, okay, something like this, or horizontally from left to right. And you do that using layout. Let's start with a horizontal layout to start out. We have a class which is called QHBoxLayout. And it is a way we have to lay things out horizontally in our class. And to do that, you set up an object of that class. We are going to say layout or button layout. Okay, we can do something like this. And it is going to be a QHBoxLayout component. Okay, once we have the layout, we can add things to this layout. So let's say button.
Okay.
Layout, add widget, and you see we have a bunch of methods. You can add other layouts inside this layout. You can add a child widget, but in this case we are just interested in adding a widget, which is going to be our button1. So please make sure you really understand the flow of things here. We have our parent widget, and we want to put things inside this widget using this layout here. Once we have our widget in the layout, now we can call the setLayout method on the widget to let it use this layout component to lay things out inside the widget component here. So we're going to say self set layout, and we are going to say button layout. We can do this. Now if we run, we should see our button.
Okay, so we're putting, okay, that's now, so layout is okay, it's pretty easy. I mean, yeah, a lot of logic is similar to other front-end, I guess, technologies, and I've done Python Swing, not Java Swing before, so I know about layouts, and these widgets are basically labels from backend, right? So these widgets basically are the labels from backend and stuff. Yeah, I think it's pretty similar. It's just the syntax is very different and not very different, a bit different. And like that's I think mostly I think I should just grasp this pretty quickly.
Inside our widget, and if we do this, you see that we have button1 here.
Type should do we? The fuck? QHBox layout. Why? Oh, I did B wrong. Type shit. It should work now. Yodi gang. Is Batan one any problematic thing? Batan one is just here, bro. So put add widget. Just add widget reply to push fit an object. The fuck? I mean, sure though. Honestly, I don't.
And this is really cool. Now that we have this infrastructure.
But then they have to go to QHBox layout. Oh my god, I did not set it like that. Oh, I should just work. And I'm just so bad at this shit. Oh yeah, we have not.
In place, we can add other buttons. So for example, we can go down and copy this. I think we can do that. Control Alt down. This is going to copy this in Visual Studio Code, and we can name this to button 2. Okay, and we can add a widget again. Control Alt down. This is going to copy the line, and we can say button 2 here. And now we can go down and try to run. We should have 2 buttons, button 1 and button 2, and you can keep going, putting in as many buttons as you want. Another thing I want you to see is that you can lay things out.
Oh, it does not copy it, word. Shift all down, yeah. Bro, just lying to me. I need to add this in the current layout that we have, right? It should work. Yo, calm down, brother. What? It just reverted back to its old days? Like, what is that? It's reverted back to its old lifestyle. Like, that's crazy. Type shit, we're gonna multiple like that.
Out even vertically, so we can change this to be a vertical layout. Let's do that. QV box layout, and we can change this to be a QV box layout.
No, I don't like that. Why are we doing all that, brother? QV box. Curve and horse layouts.
Yeah, this is all we need to do, and because
Calm down, calm down. Wow, I selected certain part, but that should be good enough. Type share. That should be type share. Yeah. It's gonna be like that as well. No.
because this is a vertical layout, now when we add these buttons here, they are going to be added in vertical order. Let's try to run. Button 1 should be on top, button 2 should be below. Let's run again. And we have this here, and this is really cool. Now you can see that we can use this widget, and this is really the idea I was trying to convey here, as a base on top of which we can build other complex user interfaces, and we will be doing a lot of that in the course here. Right now, we are just laying the foundation so that you really understand what is going on under the hood. Now that we have these buttons, we can really do all kinds of crazy things. For example, we can set up a bunch of slots that are going to be activated whenever we click on these buttons. Now you already know how to do these things, but now we are going to be putting in these methods as part of this class. They are going to be methods of this class here. So for example, we can say def button 1, and when it is clicked, we are going to print a message saying button 1 clicked. Okay, we can do something like this. We can even
Oh wow, that's kind of cool, you know, type share. It was just like initiating the buttons. Button. Bro, I don't know, bro, this is like such menial work. Like I feel like AI could do this very easily. It's the same thing you need to keep doing. Auto the pattern. Can do like so nice.
copy this method code. I think we can do that. Okay, so let's do that and do that for button 2. Clicked, and we are going to say button 2 clicked, and we can connect signals to these slots that we are setting up
Why?
here. The way you do that, you come down and say button 1, you already know this. If it is clicked, okay, we want to connect to a signal.
Oh yeah, that's type share. But signal, no, but connect to one click.
To a slot, and that's going to be self button 1 clicked. We have this for button
Oh wow.
button 1. We can duplicate this for button 2, so we can select the line, shift alt down. This is going to copy the line in Visual Studio Code. That's why I love Visual Studio Code, and we can put the code here to duplicate it, and we are going to say button 2 click. Now we have the connection from these buttons to the slots we have down here. If you click on button 1, you should see this message. If you click on button 2, you should see this message. Let's view terminal, and we are going to try and run again, but we have the previous application instance running, so we can kill it and run again. And if it runs, watch what happens below here.
Type. It does not print that share, brother. It does not be printing that share. Oh, it's not printing that share. Why? Why though is it not printing that share? Did I not save it? Should be.
Okay, so let's click on button 1. Button 1 clicked. What is going on here? The problem is that we are saying these methods up as methods of the class, but we're not telling these methods that they belong to this class here. You do that by passing in the self argument. Sorry for
I mean, that means you just not instantiating.
That. So let's do self, and I think at this moment this should work. Let's clear and run again. And if we click on button 1, it's going to say button 1 clicked. If we click on button 2, it is
Okay, that's kind of high right there.
is going to say button 2 clicked. If you wanted, you could change this to be laid out horizontally by using QH box layout. That is going to lay out things horizontally. If you run again, they are going to be laid out horizontally. If you click button 1 clicked, if you click button 2 clicked. This is really all I wanted you to see in this lecture. Again, if you don't know what QH box layout and QV box layout do, I invite you to use the documentation. Let's do that. QV box layout. And you are going to have a lot of information about these things. You can really read this if this is your first time. You are going to pick up a lot of information, and this is going to be very helpful in your career as a Qt for Python developer. We are going to stop here in this lecture, and I will see you in the next one. In this lecture, we are going to explore the QMain window class. This is a class.
No, we are not going to explore it right now. Boring ass teacher, bum ass teacher. That's a lie. That's a lie. I think it's a different way of teaching, of course, and I guess I prefer a particular way. This is just not it. So, but I think I'll just stick through this. I might need to read a lot more documentation though now because I don't know. I think this should be good enough for me now. I think I can read up whenever I need to while working on the project. So yeah, I think I'll say man. Wow. I think that's enough of the project work for today. I guess learning work, if you want to call it that. It's good element, right? How about this video? It's like
what they are, and at blueprint. Now in Python, it's meg, which is a type in. Let me know in the comment section down below. All of these, you can do it. And self-creation to egg. But inside here, you can actually do whatever you want. You can make it return whatever you want. If we define the representation, this will return the string representation, that functionality with. Do let me.
wow. I guess it's like a nice ass video to really watch through if you have. This is kind of like a playlist from Python.
This video was brought to you by Indently.io, learning approximately the same O1 performance.
Wait. I mean, I don't really want to know. This is the problem when I do like a particular thing. It's a leetcode. Bro, it's been 2 days back to back. I'm not done anything. So 25th. I did not go live yesterday. What happened on the 24th? I don't remember what happened on the 24th. I think I was just watching anime. I don't really remember. I guess I skipped 24 too. Oh, I only thought I skipped 1 day. Wow. Was the problem that over here was threesome, right? And before threesome, okay, I'll just try longest mountain array. That seems like an easy problem. Longest mountain in array, why not? For one. It's a medium question. You may recall that array is a mountain array form here. Error of language with L3. Sound like I. It's like oh I error -1, okay. What does that mean? I don't like when they like do this shit. So array of length should at least be equal to 3 or more. Okay. If Okay, so I think I can just do this. Then why is it not the length function is not? Oh, because it's not used like that, pretty sure, right? Yeah. It's less than 3, I guess. If array is less than 3, then just return 0. That works. Next, there exists some index I, 0 indexed. What does 0 indexed even mean, bro? Okay, 0 index means that. Okay, with 0 I should be bigger than 0 and lesser than. Okay, I mean surely there exists. Okay, if you're saying there are like at least 3 numbers, then of course there exists an index like I. Oh no, such that the 0th element is lesser than the first element and the. No, so all elements are bigger, like it's an increasing order, and everything after that is in a decreasing order. Given an integer array ARR, return the length of the longest subarray, which is a mountain. Wow. So for example, this is not a mountain. This is in a mountain, so that's 5. Here, this is a mountain, this is a mountain, this is also, yeah, that's a mountain. 0. Okay. I'm not really sure how to do this question actually. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, right. Oh yeah, I think if I'm using 2 pointers, then I can just have like 2 different counters for each particular pointer, where it will just calculate the count of the maximum number. So we could have like 2 pointers, so p1 equals starting at 0 and p2 starting at len of ARR minus 1 for the last element, and then while p2 is bigger than p1, we could basically just uh away. Okay, we'll just see if the next element is bigger than it or not. Basically, if it continues. So if p1, if ARR of p1 is smaller than ARR of p1 plus 1, uh, count n plus equals to 1, and I can start on that. Alright, and then else. No, I think would like equal. Okay, no, they have only mentioned less than. So anything else, count else should be reset it to default, right? I mean, no, we need to do it for like many cases, right? Where like, so we need to do this like for. I mean, will there be always only one mountain in a array? Probably not, right? There's probably going to be more than one mountain in an array. Let me just try this out first. If error of p2 is less than error of p2 minus 1, count r plus equals to 1, else count r equals to 0. White. I just write two if else blocks where we comment about like we comment till and thing, right? We need to keep on increasing p1 and keep on decreasing p2. So p1 plus p2 minus 11. But I think this is not going to work if there is more than one mountains, right? For example, we are doing this right now, right? But we only are counting this. We need to create a max count as well. Okay, but like if we can only create a max pyramid if we actually hit each other, right? So how do we even do that? Like we are doing that and we are doing that, but like it could be the case that like we could have like a if or if of that as well, right? But actually I think this should be like one thing. If or of this, right? And afterwards we just have this. Then we also have like another if, which would basically be this white. So it checks for both, and like if it's not, then there's this count r equals 0, count r equals 0. We are like checking for both. It's like if anyone is there, like we do that, right? But if any one of them like even is true, because it could be the case that like one of them is not true and we don't want the counter to be or counter to be like zeroed then, right? Also we could like make another condition where to create like the to have like the max count from like p2 minus p1 equals to 1, and they're like side by side, right? At some point, then longest mountain would be equals to maximum between. So at the start we'll have just like set 0, so maximum between count L plus count R comma longest, right? So we take the basically take the maximum of count L plus the current maximum of the current pyramid versus the longest pyramid. The longest pyramid. I mean, How do you even know if there's like another like longest parameter? Like if we find like else, when we find else, how do we instantiate like, okay, we are doing count and then count r equals to 0, we are like resetting the current counts, but how do we instantiate the p1 and p2 afterwards? I'm not even sure actually, because I think p1 stays where it needs to stay, but where does p2 stay? P2 goes back to the length? I think so. P1 stays where it stays, but p2 goes back to the length, I'm pretty sure. But there could be the case where like it could like start from there. Yeah, so p2 goes to length, so p2 equals to length of era, right? I think so. I'm not sure if this works or not, but I think the logic is kind of alright, I'm not sure. So it will go up till the point, and like p1 stays wherever it is, right? And then we just like pass this particular turn because we don't want to do that this turn around. Am I correct? Am I correct? Am I correct? P1 stays as P1, right? I'm pretty sure it does. Not sure though. I mean, I'm pretty sure at the same time while also not being sure. I'm not sure. Longest equals to maximum comma that. So we only do longest when P2 and P1 are besides each other, and they will only always be besides each other if they followed the condition in the past of always P2 minus 1 being bigger than the P2. Then we just have our longest saved, and we then return the longest in the end. But I don't understand whether, so this is the case where we do not find it, right? This is the inevitable case where like both of them are not, so this condition is not being followed and this condition is also not being followed. Then I'm not even sure actually. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, it will go index out of error when, why though it should work. I'm not sure, man. Like, What's the problem here? Like, why is it out of index or something like that? If error of pointer 1 is less than error of pointer 1 plus 1, but pointer 1 will always be behind pointer 2, right? And like we are checking they are not side by side by that. I'm not sure actually. But is this wrong actually? I thought this was like good enough. Okay, I'll just run this search activity. I'm not sure what this. Error of p1 plus 1 count plus equals to 1 counted. Shit, I don't even know. Code is intended to find the length of the longest mountain and how the mountain has several issues. It commits war crimes. It's retarded. It has symptoms of cancer, brain cancer even. Implementation is incorrect. Here the representation for the feature correct logic on the device. The current code does not actually validate this problem and ensure that there is one increasing and one decreasing sequence. What? The current code does not explicitly validate this property or ensure there is at least one increasing and one decreasing sequence for each considered range. Moving both pointers towards 7, each point should modify 90 or decrease 7, which will ensure that resetting period to runner. Infinite loops and proper updates as long as the completion of the is I wanted like as a function. The peak of mountain and validate required structure. What the fuck? Base of an increasing slope. 55 peak, end of the increasing sequence. Decreasing sequence compared to the mountain length. Wow, this is just too much. I'm not. Fuck. They are just checking for that. Long as you can 0. Why are we starting from the second element? While I is less than n minus 1. What is n? N is that length of array. If we are not understanding, fine. Wow, that's kind of goofy, bro. It's kind of like a similar question to 3 sum actually. Wow, I need to put this in Obsidian to do 3 sum and longest mountain tomorrow and before I do the project stuff because uh, look into 3 sum and longest array before doing project stuff tomorrow. So what do I do today? What did I do yesterday? Group anagrams. When did I last do contains duplicate 2? have I never done contains duplicate 2? Also, all of these questions are sliding window. Why is it calling them 2-pointers? Like, it's a sliding window here. 2-pointers are different anyway. Given integer and num channel k return 2. Is there no summation of this? No. Given an integer and num and integer k return true, there are two distinct value indices I and j, and the indices that nums of I equals to nums of j. What? What does that mean? Given an integer and num and integer k return true if there are two distinct values of indices I and j, two distinct indices I and j, not distinct values of I and j, in the research that nums of I double equals to nums of j and abstract of I minus j is equals to k. So if there is any like, okay, so it's because 1 is here, right? So the abstract value of I minus j here would be, so I would be 0, j would be 4, 3, so that would be k. And also check the fact that like nums of I equals to nums of j as well. Alright. So I will have like a p1 comma p2. I'm not sure how to start them right now, so I'm just gonna start them at 0 and 0 right now, because it could be starting from it, it could be starting from, I'm not sure. I think we need to start p2 based on distance, shall we? Why don't we just start p2 at k plus 1 actually, because no, minus 1, because here the kth would be 0, 1, 2, 3. I mean, yeah, p1 and p2. If we let's just start them at 0 comma k, we know that the distance, abstract distance between p1 and p2 is k. Now for the particular list, we want to see that like if for I in range 0 comma len of nums, then if nums of I, the nums of p1 double equals to nums of p2 return true, else p1 plus equal to 1, p2 plus equal to 1. Also range minus k, I guess, right? Because I'm not sure, maybe k minus 1 as well, but it will return to if there's all those, otherwise just return false, right? Right. I'm not sure. There's gonna be like an index out of array kind of range kind of thing. Wow, it worked in my first pass. You know, I just made it work in my, okay, it's an easy question, but still, wow, that's amazing. Expected was 2, but why 2? Are you retarded? It's not even 0 comma 2. Why 2, bro? Output should be false. Expected was true, but why should it be true? Isn't this not the difference? The difference is not, the distance is just only 1 here, I'm pretty sure, right? Isn't this wrong? Isn't this disk is wrong? Isn't this disk is wrong? Because there's no way. Okay, so K was 2. Output was false. But isn't this test is wrong because they said that like abstract of indices of I and J, but it should be like 0 and 1 here. It should be less than or equal to K. Oh, it's less than or equal to K, not just K. Oh, so it could be less than or equal to K. That means, oh, it said less than or equals to. That means I can just do this that easily, right? Abstract of I minus J is less than or equals to K. Wait a second, how can I fix that then? I mean, P2 should be, P2 would be checked for all P1 plus P1 to K then, right? Instead of just being K. P1 would be checked for 1 to K instead of just being for 1. Fuck, man. Or could there be a condition that I could just put in here which would just fix it up? If I arrange that, or anything smaller than K2, so how do I like decrease P2 minus 1? Like for example, do we need to use a double loop here? I'm pretty sure I can solve this with a double loop, but do we need to use a double loop here? Can we not solve this without a double loop? Okay, so let me just try this with a double loop, which will be for P1 K plus 1 P2 in range P1 plus 1 comma K plus 1. Instead of this, I think it should be, I mean, only at this point it should be like K1 plus 1, right? So this one should be P1 plus K plus 1. P2 will not be increased every single time now. But I need to look into index out of range errors because I mean, would it work just anyways with minus of K? The speed is terrible, I understand that, but wrong answer? I mean the length of nums is here 2, right? And k is also 2. So the loop will never enter. If length of nums double equals to k, I think I might just need to put in a case for this. This will be if length of nums no, and just put this even is at that point. Number of k minus 1 here, right? I'm pretty sure it should be number of k minus 1. Yeah, it would be k minus 1, I'm pretty sure. Wow, output should have been true here. Wow, brother, I need to put in a fucking thing for that as well, brother. Man, there's no way, there's just no way, bro. Like, this is getting convoluted and I don't like that. I mean, it should have been correct here. No, it should have been false here because this is kind of 1. And k is not equal to 1, just put in here, right? I just put in and k is not equals to 1. That perfectly works. I think I should have gone with len of nums instead of k. But if already k is bad, then yeah. They expected true? I'm retarded. Why would you expect true here? Oh, it's less than 3 though because. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know, bro. I don't even know whether like, I'll just go back to my original case of like. Whoa, how long the memory goes for this shit? Now, if it was like just at the kth location, it would have been so much more easier. But it's about k and minus 1 as well. Such that then you should add more 5k. That loop runs from 0 to len on 1, but it assumes speed should be initially corner. What is it even want? From typing import list. And every single question is just too goofy, bro. Like, Like they fucking forget navbar sometimes. So let's go on practice. Array and hashing contains duplicate 2. It will be somewhere here. Yeah, this one.
Code today. So today let's solve the problem contains duplicate 2. We're given an integer array of nums and an integer k. We want to return true if there are two distinct indices I and j such that the two values at those indices are equal and the absolute value difference between those indices is less than or equal to k. Now the most important thing to recognize here is that by this statement, they mean that the size of the window between the two elements is less than or equal to k. So take the first example, we have 1, 2, 3, 1. Clearly we do have some duplicate values here, 1 and 1. They are at different indices. And the question is the size of the window less than or equal to k? Well, not exactly actually, that's another edge
I mean,
case.
for this, couldn't we just use the normal contains duplicate function and then after, like, if it has a duplicate, I mean, it will be only finding like the first duplicate ever, right? So, yeah, I think that's not working. It will not be working.
That you have to keep track of. When we have I and j pointing at the same value here, what's the size of this window? Well, it's 1, there's just a single element. But what's the absolute value of the difference between those two indices? 0 minus 0, that's going to equal 0. So this equation is off by 1. Now, what about this window from 0 all the way to 3? It's, of course, of size 4. Does it satisfy the absolute value? Well, we take 3 minus 0, that gives us 3, or we could have done the opposite and gotten the absolute value of 0 minus 3. It would have equaled 3 in the end anyway. Is this value less than or equal to k? Yes, it is. So this is a valid window. So basically the problem is asking us, can we find a valid window of size k plus 1 such that there are duplicate values in that window? Well, what's the easiest way to solve this problem? Well, let's assume our k value in this case, instead of being 3, it was actually 1. In that case, we would want windows of size 2. What would be the brute force way to solve this problem? Well, just check every single window. Check this window, are there any duplicates? Check this window, are there any duplicates? And keep doing that for every window. What's the easiest way to identify duplicates? Usually a hash set or a hash map is pretty easy because we can insert and look up values in constant time. There's one slight improvement here that we can make though. Instead of brute force checking every value in this window and then restarting over here and checking every value in this window and then restarting over here, checking every value here, we can use the sliding window technique, which if you're familiar with it, it's pretty obvious that it can be applied to this problem because this whole problem is about windows. So we would start our window like this. We have 1 and 2. And then when we shift our window over here, we keep this value in the window, but we would remove this from our window and add this value to our window and check, are there any duplicates here now? And we would keep doing that until we got to the end of the array, or that we did find duplicate values, in which case all we have to do is return true. We don't have to return the actual indices of those duplicates. So doing it this way, the time complexity will be O of n because we're using a sliding window. We're never going to add the same element to the hash set more than once. And the memory complexity for the hash set is going to be also O of n. Well, actually, it's more accurate to say O of k in this case, where k, I guess the max value it could be is n, but O of k is probably more accurate here. So now let's code it up. So the first thing I'm going to do is initialize our window hash set. This is going to keep track of all the values in our window. We're going to have 2 pointers to define our window.
I don't even remember if I ever did these questions because I've done buy and sell stock. Was that a window question? There was not a window that I was using in that question. Oh, sure.
We're going to have the left pointer, which is going to start at the beginning, and we're also going to have a right pointer, but we don't need to initialize that because we can just use it in our looping here. We're going to go through every position in the input array nums. For every value at index R, we're going to check, has it already been added to our window? If it has, then that must mean we found a duplicate, in which
Return
case we can just
true.
go ahead and return true. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and add that value to our window, nums of R. But remember the
Need
case,
to also
as
pop
we
out the
shift,
value.
we don't want our window to be greater than the, I think it was k plus 1. So before we even do this, it's important that we make sure to do
Pop
this
out the
before.
value.
Before we do it, we have to check if our window is indeed too large, which we could check by saying right minus left is greater than k, then we know the window is too big. Because remember, we know it's allowed to be less than or equal to k, but if it's greater than k, then that's a problem. We have an invalid window, in which case
L plus
the
1
easy
plus
thing to do
1
is
and
just to remove the leftmost value and also increment
increment.
our left pointer. And that's pretty much about it. If we never end up returning true, then out here we should probably return false. And let's
It's
run the
so
code to
easy.
make sure that it works. And as you can see, yes, it does. And it's pretty efficient. If this was helpful, please like and subscribe. If you're prepared.
Holy fuck, that's just so easy, bro. Okay, so if we use a set and then we, okay, so window just like keeps changing. Okay, I don't remember that one, like a thing beforehand. SMS channel 0 for R in range len of nums. Also, we need to start our window set for win set nums of R in window return true. But if it's not in that, we just add yes window add nums. Yep, and this will done because we are outside. Here we need to check if L if R minus L, actually the R was very greater than L that equals to K, no, less than, bigger than K, right? What we put it at left, double equals to, oh yeah, before putting in, oh, we would like check for this, because if it's equal then we need to remove something else, then we need to have to remove R before even checking it. When it's in it, then we need to check. So when it's increased, so when R is bigger than by more than K, then window dot remove nums of R and R, no, L, nums of L plus equals to 1, right? Yeah, that's pretty type shit. Well, this code is actually pretty good, I would say. We're building a sliding window that Yeah, that's pretty submit. That is pretty submit, brother. What did I do for you? I'm like 50 questions strong now. That's fine. I mean, most of them are easy. I need to start hitting up some medium questions tomorrow as well. But yeah, I think that's fine pretty much. So I think that's it for today. How long have I been streaming actually, bro? So I think that's it for today. 2 hours? How long? Like, does it not show like the timing, exact time and shit? Whatever, I'll see it later. 2 hours is cool. White times. Why the video quality is so low, bro? Like, am I not streaming it in a high enough quality? Yes, I am. Sirski. Yes, I am. Sirski. That's good enough for today. Should be updated. I'm finally hitting 50 now. That's pretty bad. The last 2 days I just fucked up a bit, but whatever. Why is it like 7 submissions today? I only did 1. Oh yeah, some of them are wrong today. It also counts the wrong submissions. That's goofy. Well, that's how today.